Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat?
No, we just want them to just play ball. That'll be, really the remainder of preseason. We'll obviously roadmap those games pretty good, but this was just purely call it and react.
126 play scrimmage. A 126 play scrimmage, none of it scripted. Kellen Moore off the cuff. Ross Jackson of LouisianaSports.net, LockedOn Saints podcast. He was there, God bless him, charting every single rep. He's here now. Hey, man, how are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. What's crazy is that 126 plays doesn't even include, the penalties, the field goals, the things that didn't get counted in the offensive play side. So there was even more. It's crazy. It was a busy day.
How many sheets of paper to chart all 126 plays?
I think I lost count at there were 18 series. Some series were 3 and out, so it was easy to get them in there. So I was probably around 8 or 9 sheets of paper. Not too bad.
You're out there doing the Lord's work, and we appreciate it. So Kellen Moore said it. It's the longest scrimmage that he or anyone had been associated with. What prompted that on Sunday?
Yeah, that was something that Kellen just wanted to be able to do. He wanted to get away from the scripted play side to where, it's not necessarily that the offense knows what the defense is doing and the defense knows what the offense is doing in those situations, but, you get those plays as a player the night before, and then you kind of get the opportunity to get familiar with them, and then you show up the next morning, and then you're running those plays. And so he wanted to kind of take that level of preparedness out, which doesn't really exist in the game situation. Sure, you can you can study your playbook all you want the night before a game, but when you show up, you don't know what's coming at you, when, and what situations you're going to be facing, and all these other things. So this gave them, over the course of 18 different drives, to be able to operate with different procedures, operate under different scenarios, different situations, different circumstances, and call plays that mesh and mold and change and ebb and flow the way that an NFL game would, and both sides of the football having to respond to that. There were about 89 passes thrown that were counted, and as a part of that, you saw a lot of the defense having to adjust to a pretty heavy passing day. Didn't see a lot of the run game mixed in, but certainly some of it. So I think all of it was just about getting these players away from pre-scripted preparedness and into a different type of preparedness to be ready to go kind of at a whim's notice based on what plays you were going to get, what team was going to face which team, all of that within this scrimmage environment.
Ross, I'm glad you brought up the run game, even though it wasn't really featured on Sunday. We know Kamara is going to be RB1. I know you've written about this at LouisianaSports.net, but does there seem to be any separation at all yet, or pecking order for RB2?
Yeah, I would say that there's kind of tiers. And so obviously Alvin Kamara is in a tier of his own, but then you look at some of the other guys that have gotten sort of first and second team reps. That group includes guys like Edwards-Helaire, Devin Neal, the rookie third-year running back Kendrick Miller that's really looking to bounce back this season. And then a little bit of Cam Akers kind of mixed in all of that too. And then we've seen kind of Marcus Yarns and Bayless Jones Jr. kind of hover in the second and third team reps, with Marcus Yarns mostly in the third team reps. And so I think you can kind of look at 3 distinct tiers in terms of Alvin Kamara, the guys that are seeing first and second, and then the guys that are mostly involved in second and third teams. And that gives you an idea of maybe where things sit right now. But if you were to ask me who right now I think is running back 2, I don't know that I can answer that just yet, because we haven't seen enough of the run game throughout training camp. A lot of the padded practices have lent themselves towards the passing game, 2-minute drives, or rather 2-minute drills at the end of halves, 2-minute drills at the end of games. The first day of padded practices, we saw quarterback run game installs, all that. So I'm really excited to kind of really get to sink my teeth into the run game a little bit more of what this will look like for this team once we get to the preseason, and they've got to be able to kind of show that on the field in LA. And so I think that's when we're going to learn a lot more about this run game. Okay,
as they head into the first preseason week here, they'll play the Chargers on Sunday. It's in an off day here on Monday after a 126-play scrimmage. It's a good time to just sort of pause, pull back, and assess the body of work so far at quarterback. 10,000-foot view, tell us what you see so far.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the three quarterbacks that are kind of in this conversation, we know that there's two front runners. It's Spencer Rattler and it's Tyler Shough. And so when it comes down to the two of those guys, I think that what we've seen from Spencer Rattler is a much more decisive Rattler than we saw last season. That makes sense, going from a rookie year, having seen 6 starts now, having seen some NFL action and adjusted to the speed. And we've also seen a Rattler that's a little bit more comfortable utilizing his legs in a way that he couldn't or didn't last year. When we spoke with him one-on-one over at LouisianaSports.net last year after his first 3 starts, when he talked about coming back after the offseason, he talked about coming back as a brand new player and that fans were going to see something entirely different because he wanted to be able to utilize his legs a little bit more and trust sort of that natural athleticism that he has. He wanted to focus on kind of rebuilding, the lower body and building speed and all these other things. So I think you're seeing all of those elements kind of come to fruition for him so far throughout training camp. Tyler Shough, what you're seeing is a guy that can make every single throw on the field, take some incredible arm angles, has some athleticism in his game as well, but hasn't really been aggressive until maybe the last couple of practices. So as that aggression turns into, bigger plays being made and things like that, then I think you can see him start to close the gap that currently exists between him and Spencer Rattler. But I would say right now that we're just looking at them from a general perspective so far, Spencer Rattler comfortably ahead right now in that quarterback battle. And a lot of it has to do with his ability to operate and his ability to kind of make decisions quickly and take some risks in the process.
Do we know, Ross, how Kellen Moore is going to handle the reps for the preseason games for the quarterbacks?
Not just yet. It's something that's going to definitely come up tomorrow, and then we're probably going to bug Kellen each and every day. He's going to feel like the Super Bowl again when I was following him around all over New Orleans. And so I'm sure we'll bug him about it all throughout the week, next week in Orange County. But I'm curious about that too. Is he going to throttle this down to just 2 quarterbacks, give one a half? Are we really going to see 3 quarterbacks involved? And, obviously there are some other things that could play into that decision, but we don't know just yet, but I think that we're going to be pestering him about that here this week.
Yeah. Ross Jackson is with us. He's on Twitter at RossJacksonNola. Give him a follow. You can read him at LouisianaSports.net. You can listen or watch him at LockedOn Saints. We've talked so much about the quarterbacks, Ross. I think we're all guilty maybe of not talking enough about who's actually going to catch the ball. We know Olave and Shough are there. Is anybody else making a significant impact so far?
I know T-Bob is, off in Chicago having a good time now, but he would be very happy to hear that it's Mason Tipton.
I am not
Tipton.
Isn't this the problem though, Ross? Like if you keep, not you, but you keep trying to sell me every year in camp on Mason Tipton, and every year the season comes and he's nowhere to be seen. Like, isn't that a problem?
I think it becomes a problem if every year it gets to the regular season and he's nowhere to be seen. I think that that's true. Like if that continues to happen, then, we get back to the wide receiver who shall not be named kind of territory. And so I think that for New Orleans, they would certainly like to avoid that for sure. But I will say Mason Tipton is standing out each and every practice so far. Last year, he was standing out early, but then he had that injury and that kind of set him back a little bit from getting comfortable with the offense, which was, a very kind of run-heavy offense. I think this one will be too, but is going to ask a little bit more of its wideouts. And I also think, too, that one of the reasons why we're seeing Mason Tipton stand out so much is because we haven't seen Brandon Cooks overly involved. And I think that's by design. Brandon Cooks, Demario Davis, and Cam Jordan are all guys that have kind of been paced into the installation and throughout practice, but not overly utilized or overly featured in practices. And I think that's because they know what these guys are going to do, and they know that those guys know what it is that they need to do as the veterans of the roster. And so I do think that there is a truth to the matter, too, that when you get into the regular season, you'll see Brandon Cooks a little bit more than you're hearing about him in training camp, and that's probably going to impact the opportunity and ability for a guy like Mason Tipton to really cash in on that momentum that he's building here in training camp.
All right. So much focus on the offense naturally with the quarterbacks and offensive-minded coach, all that stuff. It is Brandon Staley installing a new defense. Anything that is maybe the biggest storyline on the defensive side so far, good or bad?
Yeah, I think over on the defensive side, a good thing that I would highlight is I think the defensive side has a lot more talented young depth than the offensive side of the football has. And so that's good for this defense. I think that when you look at, the top of that edge rusher room, Chase Young, Carl Granderson, it's easy to kind of see guys that stand out there. They always kind of stand out. They look different than the rest of the players around them, especially now as stand-up edge rushers. But then you look at some of these deeper guys, Yashin Davis, who you had on the show after he was signed as an undrafted free agent at Wake Forest. He has flashed. Fadil Diggs, the rookie out of Syracuse, previously Texas A&M. He's flashed. Chris Rumpf, the guy that got brought in and has been somebody that, was familiar with Brandon Staley. He's flashed as well. And so now you're just looking for them to put together more consistency, and in particular in in-game situations. The thing that's become sort of the concern is where you're seeing some incumbent players not really feel like they're settling into the new system. Isaiah Foskey, for instance, is a guy that we thought this might be, like, if it was going to work for him, that this would be the system in which it worked. It's so similar to what he did at Notre Dame in that Viper role where he was more of a stand-up pass rusher hybrid linebacker. And he simply hasn't really shown up very much so far, or shown out very much so far. And so I think that, like, he's got all the talent. It's just, for whatever reason, it's not showing on the field just yet. And so I think that, along with the depth at wide receiver, which we already discussed, and I would say, too, a little bit of the depth on the offensive line, because you see a lot of pressure in those second and third teams, and we're seeing errant snaps for those centers behind Eric McCoy. I think those are the places that have been most concerning so far.
Blake Grupe's locked down the kicking job.
Oh, my goodness, has he ever? He's, I think, 26 of 27 so far. That includes makes from 54, 59, 53, 51. I mean, this guy has been just automatic here so far throughout camp. Remember, we talked about how much of a competition we would see with the legs, kicker and punter in special teams. This has never felt like a competition when it comes to Blake Grupe and Charlie Smith. And it's not all about, the kicks that Charlie Smith has missed, which have been a lot of kicks in between the 40 to 50-yard range. It has just been how ridiculously good and consistent Blake Grupe has been. He looks like he's in for a big year. And look, with young quarterbacks and an offensive system that's being installed and trying to learn all of this, the kicker might be a big part of what puts points on the board. And so a guy like Blake Grupe going out there and building this momentum in training camp should be able to translate well going into the regular season. And I will say that almost all of his kicks, if not all of them actually, I'll say all but one day of his kicks have been outdoors, not in the indoor facility. Not that, we've provided much snow here in New Orleans or anything that's been, ridiculously hard for him to deal with or to manage inclement weather-wise, but just something of note that a lot of this has been against taking into account winds, taking into account sort of the natural elements in a way that last year we saw a lot of his kicks indoors.
LouisianaSports.net and LockedOn Saints. He's Ross Jackson. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, bud. You take care. Stay safe. Thanks for having me on. Talk to you soon.
Always. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.